Hey guys, this is Metallagamer here. Today I'm bringing you my review of Castlevania Lords of Shadow 2. The game is out for both Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. So, first just a few general points. Castlevania Lords of Shadow 2 is a third-person action title, not that that's any different from any of you Castlevania fans. The main character is Dracula. You are now the ultimate vampire. Dracula in Castlevania Lords of Shadow 2 shows that movies like Twilight and shows like True Blood haven't made all vampires bitches, and that vampires can still be incredibly brutal and terrifying. Alright, so the game looks absolutely beautiful. I enjoy every moment I watch Dracula walking. He looks great. The environments are done very well. They are a bit generic. They have that kind of gothic look to them, as they're supposed to. But it all looks good. I will never argue with having more of this style within our video games. The musical score complements the combats and the cinematics very well. The main character's voice, the thing is, he's supposed to be playing Dracula. So it sounds incredibly cheesy, but it does fit him. It does seem like it fits the character of Dracula. It does seem like the kind of voice Dracula would have.
That's why the power of your god cannot destroy.
The story. The story, for some odd reason or another, doesn't pull me in like it did with Castlevania Lords of Shadow 1. It gives the option to skip cutscenes, and normally I get very engulfed into the stories of games. I love games that are solely story-oriented. Games like The Walking Dead, the Telltale game series. Games like Heavy Rain. I love games that have a great story. But for some reason, the story in this game didn't pull me very much. I couldn't get into it. I'm going to play it through again and try and focus a little bit more on the story. But since it gives me the options to skip cinematics, I usually do. And then I go and just kick more ass as Dracula. To the combat. The combat is very fluid. It's very fast and incredibly challenging. I'm playing it on the hard difficulty, which I believe is Lord of Shadows mode. And it's done very well. It's very challenging. It makes you think on your feet. I've been playing a lot of Batman Arkham Origins lately, and I've gotten used to the combat, so going back to a game that's a little bit more free flow, example, not saying anything bad about Batman Arkham Origins, but when you go to hit an enemy, for the most part, you lock onto the enemy as you swing, as long as you're pointing the stick in the general direction. In games like this, you can miss just by an inch. You can miss your enemy, and that can screw up the entire fight. So I do like that you're punished for your mistakes properly. The weapons, based around 3 weapons. There's your basic blood whip. There's this weapon called the Void Sword. And then there's Chaos Claws. So the 3 weapons work differently. They all have different ways to play. The Blood Whip is your basic attacks. It does a moderate amount of damage. It obviously can reach enemies afar. And it does have the best set of combos. The Void Sword, you use it and it heals your character. You can actually heal using the Void Sword. It also does a small amount of damage. Where the Blood Whip does normally about 30 damage, the Void Sword does about 10. It is pretty quick, but like I said, it also heals you. So it is very useful in some of those tough battles. And then there's the Chaos Claws, which is basically just a flaming fist of fucking awesomeness. Your fists catch on fire, as I said, and it does the most damage. You probably do about 75 damage compared to the other weapons, guesstimate. Even though it does the most damage, it does have the shortest reach. If an enemy backs up when you swing at him, he can get out of the way. So a lot of times you are left in limbo. So it is a high risk, high reward type of weapon. But see, the thing that made me glad about the combat was you have to charge the Void Sword and to use them. They aren't available for use all the time. You have to charge them up to use them, so that way you can use them. So that way the combat isn't unbalanced. Because if it were my choice, I would only use those 2 weapons. I wouldn't use the Blood Whip. I would use when I want to deal damage and then use the Void Sword when I'm running low on health. And it's a good thing that they kept it limited, so that way you do feel limited. You do have to think about what you're doing, work on it. The game focuses a lot on blood. And even though it was supposed to be a cool and brutal idea, it almost becomes comical because of how much blood is in the game and how much blood is the focus of the game. The game's also not afraid to be incredibly brutal at times. The boss battles are also done very well. I've quite enjoyed some of the bosses I've fought. The boss battles are stressful in a good way. They make you think on your feet and make you really, really try. Alright, so the stealth section. Yes, I did say that there's a stealth section. It's a bit odd, but, you know, it is an interesting change. There is some positives and negatives. The stealth feels like it's kind of tossed in, but it can be a nice break between combat segments. The stealth segments, basically, you'll find an enemy that's way too strong for you to fight, and you kind of have to avoid him, so you use little tricks to not be seen by him. It does, though, feel like... It doesn't really feel stealthy, though. Dracula kind of just crouches and continues walking at the same pace he is, and he just has to stay out of the cone of sight of the enemies. So it doesn't really feel like an efficient stealth mode, but it is nice to see that there was an attempt at it. One of the good things, though, about the stealth section, it does reveal more of the unique powers that Dracula wields. Example, if you find an area where you can hide and there's some rats there, he can put himself into one of the rats so you can sneak past people, because obviously they're not looking at the rats like, okay, this guy's going to destroy our facility. No, you can sneak past, or you can use bats to distract an enemy, so another enemy has to go and help him to get the bats off of him, and then you can kind of sneak past. So it does show the more unique powers that Dracula wields. The upgrade system is a lot like the first game. I don't see much of a difference. The system, it feels fair. It allows you to increase your combos, it allows you to change your style, and it works really well. I wouldn't change a thing about their upgrade system. I think it's done very nicely for Castlevania Lord of Shadows, and I'm glad it's done the way it is. There's also some platforming segments, kind of Assassin's Creed-esque. I wouldn't use Assassin's Creed. If you've played Enslaved, Odyssey to the West, it feels a lot like that. Kind of like preset zones where you climb and you go through these areas pretty quickly. So it's done very nicely, and it's once again another nice break between combats. But they can be a bit long sometimes. It's also nice when they're placed in these very stressful situations. Some of them are placed into combat, which is pretty cool. So overall, I had a lot of fun with Castlevania Lord of Shadows 2. This is definitely one I'm going to keep in my, maybe not my collection, but I'm keeping for a while. I've enjoyed it heavily, and I'm going to continue playing it. Its combat is done incredibly well. I've enjoyed its combat. Its stealth sections could use a little bit of work, but you know what? Overall, there's not a whole lot to complain about. Besides, for me, the non-interesting story and the kind of shitty stealth section, there's not a whole lot to complain about. The combat is done well, and it's very fun. Like I said, I have a lot of fun playing it, and that's one of the things that counts. So, I'm going to give Castlevania Lord of Shadows 2 an 89 out of 100. That's a B+. So, anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the review. Please, if you get a chance, check out this game. If you haven't checked out the first one, please do. It's a great game. These are both great titles, and I've enjoyed them heavily. Anyways, till next time, gamers, stay fucking metal, guys. See you next time.